Dragon Breed by Irem was originally released in 1989 on the M72 and M81 hardware boards. The game was also converted to several home computer platforms, but never any consoles. Very strange. You control King Caius, who rides a large dragon called Bahamut. Bahamut seems to be immune to all enemy attacks, as his long body can wrap around the main player, protecting him from enemy projectiles. You'll also notice by watching this video that you can also back up into enemies with the dragon and eventually it will kill them. Every now and then you'll see a platform which King Caius can actually walk on. Unfortunately, when you jump off your dragon, the dragon tends to fly away, because pushing up or down on the joystick actually sends the dragon off to fight. To be honest though, this is a very interesting play mechanic. You can control Caius walking along the ground, shooting wherever you want to, while the dragon can take care of enemies higher up. The only problem is trying to get back on the dragon. It can be a little bit fiddly. Powered up wise, there's nothing really too special in there. You can collect different coloured orbs that give your dragon different fire abilities, and also a red orb which tends to power up his flame coming out of the mouth. Actually, this flame is very handy because you can just ram into enemies with it and kill them. While Dragon Breed may not be the best shoot 'em up out there, it certainly is a unique one and one that should have seen a home port on a console. Well, it has to be said that the ZX Spectrum version of Dragon Breed is not the prettiest version out there, but in playability terms it's not that bad. It does follow the arcade machine layout very closely. The power-ups seem to be in the correct place, the enemy patterns seem to be, well, pretty similar to the arcade machine, and the overall feel of the game does seem to be, well, what you'd expect it to be really. The only problem with this version is the jerky scrolling and the colour clashing. Many a time you'll find yourself killed and not know what hit you because you just didn't see the enemy projectile coming towards you. Also, the hitbox around your character seems to be a little bit on the large side. I did notice quite a few times I was killed even though there was clearly a space between me and the enemy projectile. CPC owners get a port of the Spectrum game, but surprisingly it does run faster than the Spectrum version, so it makes me wonder if this version was made before the Spectrum version. But if it was, why did they go for the monochrome colours? Maybe it was to keep the speed up, who knows. What is important though is the way the game plays, and it must be said the game does play quite similar to the arcade machine. In fact, the only down point about this is the size of the hitbox and the fact that some enemy projectiles blend into one another. But if you can get past all that, this is a pretty competent version, if not a little bit easy. Now while the ZX Spectrum and the Amstrad CPC versions are pretty much the same game, this Commodore 64 version is completely different, as is the case most of the time. To be honest, it plays reasonably well. The enemy patterns seem to be pretty similar to the arcade game, but one thing that isn't similar are the power-ups. There are an awful lot of power-ups missing. In fact, very rarely do you get to change your weapon type in this version of the game. Another thing that might look a bit weird on this video is the way the main dragon is made up. Basically, they've got a load of sprites, linked them together and flashed them on and off. I guess this is to stop sprite flicker, but to be honest, it really does look pretty bad. I can imagine anyone watching this on YouTube at 30 frames a second will probably just see parts of the dragon flashing on and off. But despite the problems with the actual main dragon character, the game itself is pretty good, if not a little bit easy. Surprisingly, the Amiga port is fairly competent. Graphically, it does look very good and it does have some parallax scrolling. The enemy attack patterns may not be as good as the arcades, but they do resemble it. But what's most important is the way the dragon moves, and I have to say, on the Amiga version, it does move really good. I was very surprised. I was expecting some really awful attempt here. But no, this game was not made by US Gold or Ocean or any of those other useless let's get a license and get out to the shops as fast as possible publishers. No siree, this is actually a quality product. In fact, the only downside I can really think to this game is the fact that you cannot have sound effects and music at the same time. That seems to be a trend with Amiga and ST ports though, so you can't really complain too much. The ST version is quite similar to the Amiga version, however it does run a lot slower. Enemy patterns are pretty much the same, and to be honest the music isn't too bad, but it's not a patch on the Amiga version. Overall though, this is a fairly competent shoot 'em up for the Atari ST. I'm just surprised it's not as fast as the Amiga version.